Well, before her NFL takeover, Taylor Swift was breaking the internet in a different way, the Eras Tour. After 3.5 million people signed up for pre-sale for the tour's first leg, only 2.4 million tickets were actually sold, leading to some bad blood between fans and ticket sites as they upped their budget to secure a seat. But from travel to shelter costs, the tour is now expected to generate over $5 billion for the U.S. economy alone. For more on this, we're joined by Matt Ferrel, who is the TickPick VP of Growth. All right, why was this debacle taking place on ticketing sites, and how can we reel this in, Matt? Because even I haven't been able to afford to go to a Taylor Swift concert this summer, but heck, at the normal prices, I would have loved to. I would have loved to support. But the resale is getting out of control here, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw was a outpaced demand for supply. There are very few artists that have the level of demand that Taylor does. And even football stadiums can't really contain the number of fans that are looking to go. And so what we saw really was trying to balance the volume of shows, the volume of seats needed, and the number of fans became really quite complicated, and the prices rose to meet that demand.
Matt, what did you see just from your data in the ticket sales for these NFL games? How big of a jump are you seeing on your platform?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we just got a update today that Taylor is rumored to be at the Chiefs-Broncos game. So we'll see what the long-lasting effect is going to be of what that jump is. But we did see a fairly substantial rise for the Jets game. We saw an increase of nearly 63%, and it was one of our top-selling games of the year once the announcement was made that Taylor was going to be there. So it really becomes sort of an interesting ancillary benefit to two very, compelling teams and compelling markets. But it also shows, as mentioned, like she brings a fan base of her own outside of the NFL audience.
And Matt, going back to her tour, I'm curious from your perspective in this business, was the Eras Tour a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon in terms of the reaction, the demand? How did it stack up compared to some of the other live concerts and events on your platform?
I've been in the live event space for a long time putting on tours, and would I call it once in a lifetime? No. Would I call it a absolute milestone tour? Absolutely. When we talk about the volume of seats and the average ticket price for this tour, as mentioned, it really got quite severe in terms of the cost. I mean, to put in context, the average purchase price was around $1,400 a ticket. Now, the average concert in 2023 is $188. So we're talking about most venues are not the size of football stadiums, and she was still able to drive that demand. The next closest we're looking at is the Adele residency in Las Vegas, and that reached $1,300 a ticket, but that venue pales in comparison to the size of what Taylor was playing. So it really was quite an anomaly in the touring space, and as you mentioned, it may be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Matt, when you looked across the different cities that we're seeing perhaps the biggest sales, or at least maybe the biggest overlap, because I would imagine that there's some data where you could see where someone is actually purchasing from versus where the event is actually taking place. How much of that overlap were you seeing? People willing to travel in order to see these concerts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see it in the major metro markets, New York and Los Angeles, obviously having the most volume of shows. And we saw people willing to make a summer trip out of it. The tour concluded, at least the front half of the tour. She will be playing dates in 2024 in Los Angeles. And we would see people start price comparing. All right, with these ticket prices, what is the cost of a hotel? What is the cost of a flight? And there are certain markets where you could actually justify flying to actually get a cheaper experience all in because of the level of cost for this particular tour. So we did see a number of markets that drove more out-of-state transactions than others. But yeah, we saw the same with Beyonce as well. People flying to Europe to go see her early days tours for this particular tour.
Matt, I'm curious when you take a look at who is buying tickets, and not for the tour, but going back to the NFL, because it certainly has been remarkable when you take into account how many new fans are now tuning into games just because Taylor is there. Have you noticed anything on your platform just about who is buying these tickets?
I think we're seeing, outside of the men 18 to 34 demo and men just in general from a transactions, I would say that this has been a ongoing trend. I think the diversification of fan base within most major leagues, but specifically NFL, has been in the making for years. It does not hurt that probably the largest entertainer in the world is also advocating and supporting this league. And so we are seeing a different mix of transactions in this particular year. And it's encouraging. It's showing that these fan bases and that these leagues can continue to grow even multiple years, multiple decades into existence. This is something that new fans can come to. And having the support of the largest musician in the world does not hurt that.
Doesn't hurt at all. All right, Matt, thanks so much for taking the time to jump on with us. TickPick VP of Growth. Thanks.
Thank you.